be unpopular with our kids?
Yeah, I think if we kind of know, because we talk about it together as a couple, what kind of discipline we want them to have and how we want them to behave. And if they step outside of that, then we know we're not going to achieve our parenting goals. And so we very quickly reprimand or correct. And then we're unpopular for a little bit. And then later on, it turns around because we explain it to them. Or a year down the line, the light bulbs will go out and they'll be like, oh, thank you, mommy. Thank you, daddy. So yes, we take it anytime.
We were even speaking about the other night how easy it is to be unpopular with your child nowadays. Because especially in our case with a teenager and a young man who just got married but is barely out of his teens, where they think they know it best. But we know that they don't know it best.
For me, it is not nice, but sometimes you have to be that. And if you do it in love, then I think they do respond positively to it. Maybe not on the moment, but after a while.
Good day and welcome again to Parenting on Purpose. And I haven't done it in the other sessions, but I'm obviously sitting with my wife, Lizette, and with Belinda, who's a school teacher at a private school, a private Christian school associated with our church. You'll hear just now why I give that introduction, because we're speaking about being a parent and not a pal. And I think very often teachers see the difference in those relationships with the pupils sitting in front of them. So parenting is often unpopular. Belinda.
Yes, when Garth and I talked a little bit about this earlier, I said to him that for me, parenting by definition is unpopular. If you want to be a parent and you want to be popular all the time, I mean, it does vary, but if you want to be popular all the time, you're not headed for any real sense of success. So you've got to just accept the fact that at some stage you're not going to be the most popular parent on the block. Yeah. But the interesting thing for me is that it doesn't change, your popularity doesn't change the fact that your children still love you. Yes. They love regardless. And for me, from a teaching point of view, and also I think from a parenting point of view, I wanted my sons and I want my students to respect me more than to find me the most popular teacher or the most popular mom. I want to be honored by my children, but not in the sense that they revere me or post nice messages on Facebook about me, but more in the sense that they become honorable young men, which honors me in the end. And that does sometimes mean, purely by definition, you've got to be unpopular or be prepared to be unpopular. Yeah. So if I can give parents permission, it would be go for it. Sometimes you just have to be the unpopular one, and it's not going to damage your relationship in the long run. It might be a temporary, and they might enjoy moaning about it and tell you that you're the only one who, but I don't think it often damages things in the long run.
Yeah. And I think it's important to keep our motive in mind. We often remind ourselves that I'm the one answering for my child before God.
That was also something especially when our kids were small, it's not always easy to say no, especially when everyone else is doing it. But in the end, realizing God gave us a specific vision or a specific picture for our kids. And one day he's going to say, what did you do with that? How did you discipline? How did you encourage or what did you allow?
Yes.
I have to answer to him. So being unpopular with my kids is one thing. But then there's also the whole aspect of being unpopular with friends or with family members. Especially very often you'll find with granny and grandpa. Yes. It feels you're way too hard on the child. Or whoever else, a sibling who says, but why do you do that to your children? Won't you allow them? I think that kind of unpopularity is also a very difficult thing to deal with because it's more in my peer group where the pressure is then applied. So we asked a couple of parents actually this question and said, how difficult is it to you when friends or family disagree with the way that you train up your child at any particular stage?
When we turned to Christ, it was quite radical. So that already made us unpopular. That already made us just weird, according to our family. So the raising of our children just followed to be
We just don't
different.
care
So,
what they think.
yeah, so we were very bold in that. We never really, it wasn't nice if we did get criticism or, you know, it's not nice.
But we still didn't care.
Yeah.
We don't try to fit in, or we try to learn from certain situations and family members and friends, but we try and get our directive, I'm sure other people as well, but try and get our directive from God, and also realize it's also a very humbling process, parenting. So we are going to make mistakes, but we're going to stick to what we feel God told us to do in certain situations, and values that we teach them.
It's Tian speaking now. I don't care about them. but I guess you can take offense, but I've never been in a position where I thought people criticized me or I took it to heart. Maybe they said, and I just go, oh, well, it's my children.
For me, it depends on who the friends and family are. If it's someone that I know who really loves my children, like my mom or my sister, and I've got like one or two friends whose views I respect, then I will listen. But, you know, otherwise I don't really care.
Yeah, just found peace in doing things the way the Holy Spirit leads me, because I cannot please everyone or get anyone's everyone's approval for the way I do things in my situation.
We are fortunate that we don't have people in our circle that full out disagree with what we do. They do things differently, and there'll be comments like, for instance, I have friends who tell me I'm a strict mom, but then my mom tells me I'm not strict at all. So it's all perception, and we are really blessed with the people in our friends and family circle that they're all supportive. So if I choose to have my kids like go dancing or whatever, then they'll support that because I am the kids' parents, and the decision and the responsibility of raising them is mine.
It's often said it takes a village to bring up a child. Belinda, what's your feeling around that? Is there truth to it?
I think from a practical point of view, having a village helps.
Yes.
If you need someone to babysit, you need someone to help with lifts, you need someone to do those sorts of things. But I think when you hand over deciding on values to the group think, to the village think, then it becomes a little bit more dangerous. Because in the end, your values are your values, and you're the one who has to be accountable for the values that you impart to your children. And as many members as there are in the village will be the number of pieces of input or opinions that you're going to get. So, so I think we resort to that a little bit too easily, that it takes a village and we want everybody's input. The bottom line is, as a husband and wife, you've got to choose. We had to choose, maybe still have to a lesser degree because we've got older children, but you decide the values for your children. And then you've got to be able to stand regardless of what the grannies and grandpas and uncles and aunties say, and say, you know, these are the values that apply in our homes. Thank you for your input. But this is the direction that we've chosen for our family, for our children. And to explain, as you said, that, I many times have explained to our children that one day I stand before God and answer for you. I don't answer for your friend. I don't answer for your friends' moms parenting. I don't answer for what anybody else says. God has entrusted me with you,
Yeah.
and what I do in bringing you up is what I'm going to be accountable for. So I'm sorry if everybody else gets to do it, but in this house, you don't.
Yeah.
So, even in a Christian context, in a church, we've often found the difference between us and friends in terms of what are they allowed to watch or things like that. It challenges us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I must say for us, just speaking about, we've often told our kids as well, we're weird. Just came out and sat at the dining room table and said, just so that you know, we don't do things the way most families do it. We are weird, and that's okay. We were fortunate enough, especially when our kids were smaller, just coming back to doing parenting courses. So in our case, we ended up with our life group, all had kids in the same age group.
Yeah.
And we ended up doing some courses together, which was nice because we did have the same value set or the same mindset about, we heard the same teaching. So sometimes it was easy to then, for our kids that we were able to say, well, we don't do it, and they don't do it, and they don't do it, although everyone else is doing it. But just so that they knew, so in our house we did things a certain way, and that's, like you say, that's all we had to answer for. I don't have to answer for
anybody
the
else.
person sitting next to me's kids. That's what we're answering to. And even with that, I must say, we've been quite sensitive as well, not to try and prescribe what we believe to everyone else.
Yes.
If someone else would ask our opinion on something, I can say this is why we chose this for our kids. Once again, specifically with movies, we had one of our children really suffered with nightmares, and it was specifically triggered by something in movies. And we had to cut all of those types of movies out. So I can't go to the next person and say, your child is not allowed to watch any of these movies because our child doesn't. This is what God showed us, and this is what we're doing. You're welcome to try it, but we're not. It's not a. It's not a religious thing. We're not going to prescribe it.
Yeah. The whole parenting pal difference also lands on I need to be firm. I need to put in firm boundaries, because a pal doesn't do that.
Yes.
A pal goes along with, but a parent puts a hedge up. Won't you share the story about fetching that child from home for school one day?
I had a student, and he was older than he should have been for his grade, and I really, really needed to work hard with him to get him finished school.
Yeah.
But he'd miss maybe 1 or 2 days every week because he'd been out the night before, or gaming the night before, or doing something the night before, and then he didn't wake up in the morning for school. And it's not something that I would do as a standard practice. I have to just say that. But I knew him, and there was just something instinctively that I thought, I have to break this pattern. And I messaged his mum, and I said to her, would you mind, because she used to keep messaging me and say, can't wake him, I can't get him to come to school. I said, do you mind if one morning I come to fetch him? So the one morning he didn't arrive at school. So I got in the car and I drove off to his house. And she worked, so I had to knock on the door until he stumbled to the door straight out of his bed. And I sort of stepped in bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and said, I thought you might need a lift to school, so I've come to fetch you. And I have never seen an 18, 19-year-old dress as fast in my entire life. Grabbed his toothbrush and brought it with, and eventually cleaned his teeth at school. And he never missed a day of school after that. And it was quite a dramatic action, and really putting in a boundary and saying, here's the line. It's enough. If you're at school, I want you at school. The excuses. And the interesting thing for me was that it earned me a devotion that has really, he's been out of school for years, but that's been lifelong, because it proved to him that someone cared enough to actually say, so far and no further. And I think that's the part that we need to remember sometimes, is that when we put boundaries in place, although children might not always like it in the moment, there's a security inside those boundaries. They don't need another friend. They need a mom and they need a dad. They need someone who says, here and inside this, you're safe. And if you step over that, I'm going to push you back in because that's the safe space. And I've found over the years with students that often those that I've had to establish the strongest boundaries for and discipline sometimes in the sternest ways are the ones who, where the connection continues way beyond school because they understood that it was out of love. It wasn't because I just wanted to be mean. It was because I genuinely cared for their best interests. And I think instinctively children like that or understand that, even though they might push a little bit in the moment. So we're afraid of sometimes saying no, but there isn't a danger in it. It's a protection, and I think children generally respond
if you know
well
you're
to
doing
that.
the right thing. So I'm doing it to protect my child.
Yes.
So the greater danger would be just allowing everything.
Yes. And the danger in that case for that boy would have been allowing him to keep. He would never have finished school. And now he sits with a good job, a good income, a future, because he said, here's a line, and you can't step over it.
One last point I'd like for us to touch on when we speak about the difference between parenting and being just a pal is the real truth aspect of it. That as a parent, we have to be the one that just cannot always be the one that says you're good at everything. We have to notice, this is you, this is not you. And to be honest enough sometimes to hurt in a moment, a feeling that says, but I thought I had that gift. This is not you. I don't know what your sense on that is.
I think we have to be honest with children. And if it's the safest place for them to accept honesty, I think if a student or a child or my child, and I have got children who definitely can't sing, they're very talented in other areas. But you've got to be honest with them at some stage before they are embarrassed by the world, and also and just say, you can't sing.
This is not
you
your
can
thing.
do many other things, but that's not one of them. Because I think, that's the safe environment in which that kind of truth can happen. And if you've built them up in many other ways where they are gifted and they are talented, generally I find they take that sort of truth on the chin and quite well.
Because you're as honest to say, this is.
Yes. And it's out of love. I think it's not, you don't want to insult them, but we do tend to want to just say our children can do anything. But they can't. So I think sometimes we have to be real. Then when you compliment them, when you encourage them, when you build them up, it is very real, and they take that to heart, and something blossoms and grows inside them if they know you're not just telling them they're wonderful at everything.
So as we put this down, I'd like to leave us with that phrase that Belinda so well said. Parenting by definition is unpopular. It's all right. We're the one putting the boundaries in, and we won't always be popular because we do that. So be encouraged. If that's where you're at the moment, it's the job. It comes with the territory. God bless us.